All right, good morning, Baruch Hashem. We are streaming live from the Soul Words house. It is Sunday morning, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and we are not going to learn a parsha. No. We are going to learn a Yom Tov, Chag HaShavuos. We are going to learn the Sichos from Likkutei Sichos Chelik Beis on Chag HaShavuos. Here's my vintage first edition, Likkutei Sichos Chelik Beis. Here's my slick new, most recent printing of Likkutei Sichos Chelik Beis. And you can buy this same nice blue Likkutei Sichos from Kahos. We have links. The link is in the YouTube description. You can buy your own copy. Oh, here's the receipt from Kahos. Okay. Did you put it on the company card? Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Yisrael, for buying the... How many copies of Likkutei Sichos Chelik Beis did you buy? You don't remember? You took their entire shelf, whatever they had there. 4 copies. That's what they had, and you took them all. Okay, that's great. All right. Page 301. Are we ready? I said, are we ready? It's a little bit overwhelming, so please calm down. Okay. Matan Torah is given in Chodesh Sivan. Chodesh HaShlishi. Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, was in the month of Sivan, which is called the third month. You know the names of the months are not in Chumash. Names of the months began after the Yidden were in Bavel. So in Torah, they're just called first month, second month, third month. By the way, does everyone know that my birthday is in Chodesh HaShlishi? I know that. My birthday is Ach Sivan. Nothing but Sivan. Ach, of course, is Chaf Aleph. You can get me a present. Derfon is verstandig, as Torah is verbunden mit Shlishi. So we understand that Torah is connected with 3. Warum außerdem was alt zu befragt in Jahren von Torah Mitzvos ist Bashkocha Pratis gefunden in mir dem Verbund von Chodesh HaShlishi mit Matan Torah mefeirish in Divrei Razal. So first of all, everything in the world, but especially things connected with Torah, are Bashkocha Pratis, divinely orchestrated. But in addition to that, we actually find this explicitly in the sayings of our sages. This is a sugya of Matan Torah in the Gemara Shabbos, where it says, Hashem gave a threefold Torah. Threefold Torah means Tanakh, Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim, to a threefold nation. That's Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. In the third month, Nissan, Iyar, Sivan. Is nicht verstandig, was ist die Meile in Chodesh Shlishi Dafke befragt ist der ganze Inyan von Torah, ist doch zum Amshich und Megala sein in Welt, dem Havaya Echod. We don't understand why we're making a big deal about 3s when the whole point of Torah is to reveal Hashem Echod, one, Hashem is one. Durch Torah Achas, through one Torah, Torah is one. Ist doch die Meile von Torah in Achdos, nicht in Shloisha. The whole greatness of Torah is about oneness, not 3ness. I don't know if 3ness is a word. Trinity. Oh my goodness, Yisrael. Get out of here. Noch mehr die Sheiches von Chodesh HaShlishi es beikert zu Torah, wie der Lashon Zal Eurian Tlisoi Chulo B'yach Tlisoi. And especially this saying of our sages in the Gemara makes it clear that the main 3 is Torah, because it says, blessed is Hashem who gave a threefold Torah, that's the main thing, when, to whom, to a threefold nation, when in the third month. So what's the deal with the 3s? Mitzvahs seinen gewähnt euch vor Matan Torah. Now, mitzvahs existed before Matan Torah. Wie the mitzvahs b'nei Noach, for instance, the mitzvahs that were commanded to Noach, mitzvahs Milah, or the mitzvah of circumcision, which is commanded to Avram and his descendants, and the mitzvahs Shnistava b'Mara, and the mitzvahs that were commanded in Mara. Mara is a location in the wilderness before the giving of the Torah. Remember, it was 6 weeks after the splitting of the sea that the Torah was given. Und Gott, sie seien alle nicht gleich zu derselbe mitzvahs, wie sie seien gegeben geworden bis Sinai, and although they are not the same as the way mitzvahs were given at Har Sinai, aber der Inyan von mitzvahs bechlal al kolponim is given euch früher, but there was such a concept of mitzvahs even before Matan Torah. Der Ikar Uftu von Chag HaShavuos shebechedesh hashlish is given Matan Torah. The main innovation that happened at Har Sinai with the giving of the Torah was Torah. Die Meile von Torah of mitzvahs wird erklärt in Tanya als durch mitzvahs wird man am Merkava zu Alakos. Was Merkava ist Bottle zum Reichev. Aber sie ist nicht ein Sach mit einem Reichev. Durch Torah aber wird man vereinzigt, mamisch mit dem Eibishtin. So the Tanya explains that with mitzvahs, when you do a mitzvah, you become a chariot to godliness. We spoke about that before. I think it was the MR Sicha, actually, from Chelik Aleph. Become a chariot through mitzvahs. But through learning Torah, you become one with Hashem. See, a chariot is batal, is nullified, surrendered to the driver. It doesn't have a will of its own. But it's a separate thing from the driver. So it's two separate things, but the one thing is completely nullified to the other. That's when you do mitzvahs. You are acting as Hashem's body, so to speak. But when you learn Torah, that's not two things. That's oneness. You become unified. Tanya calls it a yichud niflo she'en kameo, Perek chapter 5 of Tanya. A wondrous unity of which there is no semblance elsewhere. Leut dem ist noch mehr nicht verstandig, wie kommt es, was Torah, durch welche man wird ein Sache mit Nebischen ist gegeben geworden, so now we're even more, this raises the question even more pointedly. Why are we emphasizing the threeness of Torah when the point is to become one with Hashem through Torah? Base. Die der Erklärung davon ist, der Tachlis ist Tag Yachdos und nicht Shnios, Chas v'Shalom. Yes, the ultimate goal is oneness, not two-ness, not multiplicity. Wenn aber ist die Achdos von an Emesser und ausgeprüfte Achdos, but when is the oneness true, tried and true? Literally, that's what it means. Ausgeprüfte means tested out, tried and true. Emesser is true. When is it tried and true? When is it field tested, so to speak? Beis men weist von noch Mitzvos und von deswegen halt men bei Achtos Amitis. When you know about another existence and nevertheless you still insist on oneness. See, oneness isn't oneness if all you know is one option. That's just a narrow worldview. Oneness is you know about a lot of different stuff, and nevertheless, somehow, it all can be accounted for under one unifying theory. Like they say, Einstein was looking for the unified field theory or the unifying theory of everything. Because right now, they got it down to like, what do they do? Gravity, electromagnetism, the weak nuclear force, the strong nuclear force. But really, there's one force behind it all, but they didn't figure out what it is yet. Got a hint for you. Look in Chassidus. Okay. Ob man weiß den ganzen nicht von kein anderen Metzies, ist noch keine Reihe nicht. Die Achtes bei welchem man halt is an emissary. Just talking about a person. If a person only knows one thing, you can't say that the oneness, his conception of oneness, is a real one. Man weiß noch nicht, was wird man sein, wenn wird sich der Wissen von der zweiten Metzies. You don't know what's going to happen if he finds out. If he finds out about other things, If all he knows is Hashem, so he says, there's only oneness, there's only Shem, and then you show him the world, and he's like, oh, shoot, there's a world. How do I account for that? And then it's a whole oneness theory goes out the window. No, real oneness is when he knows there's a world. He knows full well there's a world, and yet he still understands that it's all oneness. The S is bavus, der Marshal, wegen Inyan, you read this in the Shemalamata. For instance, the analogy of the soul coming down to the earth. It is sometimes compared to what? Von a Ben Melech, was men will ausproven, wie stark is verbunden zum Melech. There's a prince, and the king wants to test how strongly connected the son is to him. Nehmt men hem zu von dem Heichel Melech und men führt hem weg in a weiten Ort zwischen niedrige Menschen. So they take him out of the palace, they send him away, they put him among low lives, or low, like crass people. Und wenn euch dorten führt sich auf via Ben Melech, it will continue to act like a prince even in that setting. Zetman, then you see, as is EMES, zugebunden zu sein Taten dem Melech, he's truly connected to his father, the king. Und euch bei dem Inyan, so too in the concept that we're discussing here. Wenn kommt in an Ort von Shnios, when you come to a place where there is multiplicity, begegnet sich mit der verkehrten Inyan und doch stört das nicht zu achtes, he encounters something that seems to oppose oneness, but it doesn't interrupt. It doesn't oppose his oneness. Dan Zetman, as is be'emes miyuchad, then you see he's truly in a state of oneness. Okay, again, the point is that oneness isn't because you only know about one thing. Oneness is you know about all the different things, and nevertheless, you are able to see how it's all one. In dem gufa seine Franz fanem. Now, in this concept itself, it breaks down into two concepts. Aleph, is een Vater Mitzias Hofges, rechnet sich mit ihrer Legamri nicht. One way is you completely ignore the other existence. Base, macht die Mitzias gufa klitza achtus. The other is no, you don't ignore the other existence. You turn that itself into a vessel for oneness. Okay, two levels. The achdos in Zweitneufen is a tiefere and emesere. The second type of achdos is deeper and more true. Meshas men is nor mevate mitzias hafges is noch da mitzias, was es sei zu menage zu achdos mir nit was men rechnet sich nit mit ihr. The first approach, there's still something that threatens oneness, it's just you're not going to pay attention to it. You're going to ignore it. Wenn aber die Achtes dringt durch auf so viel, als jede Metzias wird alleine Glied zu Achtes, dann ist es Achtes. But when, in the second approach, the oneness penetrates so deeply that everything becomes part of that oneness, that's the real oneness. I mean, it sounds like kind of repetitive, but what is real oneness? Oneness is something that is able to contain everything. So we said, if you only have one thing, that's not achdus. If you have two things, then now you can start to have real achdus. But even in that, there are levels. One approach, the lower approach, is to say the other things, I'm not going to pay them no mind. They don't bother me. Just ignore them. Okay, very good. But they still exist. You're just not allowing them to, to disrupt your appreciation of oneness. The second approach is that's real oneness. That's where you say, yeah, all this other stuff exists, but it's not actually other stuff because ultimately it's all one. It's all oneness. Okay. Gimel, Eis Gimel, Eis Gimel. We're on the top of the second column of page 302. Okay. Die Eibedamante dreit nur seinen in die drei Chodoshim Nissan, Iyar und Sivan. These three movements, let's call them, correspond to the 3 months. By the way, this really does remind me a lot of the Sikha. Was it? Where did we go? Where did we have the Sikha when we went through the Mashchene Acharecha Nerutza, Havyani Melech Hadarav? I think it was in Tazria. Can you look in Chelik Aleph? I think it was the Sikha of Tazria, and it went through the months, Nissan, Iyar, and Sivan. We spoke about Nissan is like Melosh and Nisim, from above to below. And we did the whole Mashcheni, Acharecha, Nerutza, Havyani, Melech Hadarav, 3 phases. Mashcheni, draw me. Hashem saves the Nefesh Elokis from spiritual collapse. Then Acharecha Nerutza, we will run after you. That's Iyar, when the Nefesh Bahamas becomes involved. And then Havyani Melech Hadarav is Sivan, is the oneness with Hashem that happens at Mount Torah. This is very reminiscent of that. You found it? Yeah. 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 Okay. There's a whole arichas about Mashcheni Acharecha Nerutza over there. Okay. Nissan is Chodesh Harishon. Nissan is the first month. In Nissan is Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that's when the Exodus happened. And what happened at the Exodus? Hashem revealed himself to the Jews. Agili Melamayla, a revelation from above. It happened so fast they didn't even have time for their bread to rise. It's unilateral. It's from above to below, and the lower realms aren't prepared for it. We spoke about that also in that sikha that I was just referencing. Therefore, the nation had to run. They had to flee. Man entläuft von Alts und man klebt sich zu Elokus. They flee everything and they cleave to godliness. Sure wasn't Emor also, we had a whole thing there about. Or maybe it was the Emor. I mentioned Emor earlier when I said we had a whole thing about Emor. We had a thing about Merkava, about the chariot. Okay, so maybe Tazria was just the difference between Nissan and Tishrei, about from above to below and below to above. Then Emor, did Emor have the whole thing of? It definitely had about the 3 months. The 3 months, yeah. Okay, that was the Emor thing. I remembered that the chariot thing was referenced in Emor. Avram Yitzchok, the Daled Diglei Markova, Raglei Markova. I'm sorry, that was the typo. The typo was Diglei Markova, but it's really Raglei Markova. Go look in the shir from Parshas Emor. Okay, so what's Nissan? Nissan is Hashem appears to you out of nowhere. You're totally unprepared, and you just run away from anything you were doing. You're not changed because you weren't working to prepare for it. You just run and grab onto Hashem, and that's it. Okay, that's Nissan. Now, what's next? Iyar is Chodesh Hasheni. Iyar is the 2nd month. Dem ganz Chodesh zählt man Sfiras ha'omer b'yirah midas nefesh bahamas. The whole month of Iyar, every day, you are refining another trait of the animal soul through counting Sfira. Yeah, you count some Sfira in Nissan, you count some Sfira in Sivan, but only Iyar, every single day of the month, are you counting Sfira, and thereby refining the Nefesh Bahamas. Min hot zuton mit mata shnius. That's the month when you're dealing with the below, which is what we call duplicity. Unmen is dos mivara, and you refine it. Die Metzias is aber noch als a Metzias nit Elokus. However, the lower reality is still its own reality. It's not godliness. Das ist euch der Remes, dem Namen von Chodesh Iyar, Rosh Tevis, Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, Rachel, Daled Ragle Armakava, Was der Inyan Markava is noch bittel zum Reichev nit Yichud. And that's also the hint of Iyar, which is Aleph Yud Yud Reish, which is Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, Rachel, who are the 4 feet of the chariot. Like we said before, a chariot is surrendered to the driver, but it's a separate thing from the driver. So in the first phase, Nissan, all of the work is being done from above to below, and the lower beings are completely unprepared for it, and they just go along for the ride. In the second phase, in Iyar, we are now getting involved in refining the lower realms. That's why we're counting Sphira, and we're refining the animal soul's attributes. But the lower realms are still something separate from Hashem, akin to a chariot, where the chariot is surrendered to the driver, but it's still not one with him. It's still separate from him. It's a technology. It's not one with him. Sivan, however, Sivan, the third phase, is der Chedesh von Matan Torah, Chedesh HaShlishi. That's the third month. That's the month of the giving of the Torah. Men nemt die zwei, you take the 2, which what are the 2? Meile, above, und Mata, below. Und men macht von sei a dritten Inyan, you make a third thing out of them. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. To quote Hegel. Was is hecher von sei beide? And that third thing, that synthesis, is higher than the whole, which is greater than the sum of the parts. Amitas hayichod v'yiskalos belakos, the true oneness and the true integration within godliness. You get it? So in phase 1, Nissan, it's all the above, none of the below. In phase 2, the below starts to get integrated, but it's still something separate from the above. In phase 3, above and below become one thing, or are revealed to have always been of one essence. Bottom of page 302. Is Dalet und der Fahr ist Torah gegeben geworden bei Chedesh HaShlishi, weil der Inyan von Torah ist Yichud. That's why Torah was given in the third month, because Torah is about oneness. And what do you think oneness is? Oneness is when you have 2 opposites, and they are not only not contradictory, but they are proven to be of one essence. Be'ez men is mekayim a mitzvah, is men takim afata die eigene Metzias zu lib der mitzvah. Okay, when you do a mitzvah, you nullify your own separate selfhood to do the mitzvah. Men werd aber nit ein Sach mit ihr, but you don't become one with godliness. You become surrendered to godliness. Again, like a technology, like something that you use as a tool. So Hashem is using you, so to speak, as his tool, as the extension of himself, as it were, to do the mitzvah. 2 different things, but one is surrendered to the other. Aber in Torah, however, when you learn Torah, wird der Seichel von Menschen vereinzigt mit der Chachma und dem Ratzen von dem Eibishten. What happens is, when you learn Torah, your intellect becomes one with Hashem's Ratzen and Chachma. Or he says Chachma and Ratzen, to be precise. Will and wisdom. Actually, he says wisdom and will. Und das ist der Inyan von Shlishi. That's what 3 means. Nimmt sein Seichel mit Chachma, sich HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kaviyachol, und von sei beiden macht a dritte Sach, Kul Echad. He takes his intellect. So this is what the Shlishi means. He makes a third thing. He takes his Seichel, and he puts it together with Hashem's wisdom, and from the 2, it emerges a third thing, which is oneness. All is one. So it's not that there's Hashem's will and wisdom on one side, and then there's mortal man's limited intellect on the other side. It becomes one thing at that moment of learning Torah, where Hashem's perspective of reality is what your brain is processing. So there's this oneness. You are seeing things from Hashem's perspective. Das ist euch, was Moshe kibbel Torah Sinai. This also is what it means we say in Pirkei Avos, Moshe received the Torah from Har Sinai. Mitzvos seien gegeben geworden. Ich bin Mara. Yes, there were mitzvahs that were given at the location in the wilderness called Mara after the splitting of the sea. Aber Torah is Sinai dafka. But Torah was from Sinai. Mitzvahs, yeah, there were mitzvahs before. But Torah, real Torah, is only from Sinai. Weil der Inyan von Sinai is the Mochech Makol Torah, like we talked about in Parshas Bahar at length. That I don't know for sure. That the Sichos in Bahar, we spoke about how Sinai was the shortest of the mountains. Didn't we sing Little Har Sinai? We sang it, right? Was is nidrike von alle Berg. Sinai was smaller than the other mountains. Yichud Beis HaFachim, which is, again, that paradox of uniting opposites. It's a mountain, which mountains are tall, and yet it's short. So let it be a valley. No, it's both. It's the best of both worlds. Und der Yichud is Nizgala geworden in Torah Dafka. And that oneness here means the ability to harmoniously integrate seemingly contradictory opposites. That is true Achdus, and that's what Torah does. It's not that there are two separate things and one thing is subservient to the other thing. It actually is that there's one thing even while there seems to be two things or a multitude of things. It's still all one thing. Okay, and that was the first Sikha. It's from Parshas Bahar Likkutei Sichos Chai, spring of 1958. So just to summarize the first Sikha, why is Torah connected with threes? Torah is about oneness. Yeah, what do you think oneness is? Oneness is threes. It's when you have seeming opposition, and from that you harmonize it and bring out that there's an underlying oneness even behind what appears to be antithetical or even oppositional. That is true oneness, and that's what Torah is, because it unites us with Hashem. Okay. Want to do another Sikha? Yeah. Page 303. Middle of the first column, Ois Hey. How you doing, Yisrael? Feeling good? Okay. We have a group coming today, right? After the share? Okay. All right. Ois Hey. Es steht in Iyar, it says in the Holy Iyar, as Chag Shavuos is hecher von alle Yom Tovim, that Shavuos is higher than all the other holidays. Was der Far is inmitten zwischen Pesach and Sukkot. That's why it's in between Pesach and Sukkot. Do you ever think about it like that? You don't think about it like that. But Shavuos is between Pesach and Sukkot. Well, is Isa de Kula, because it is the center point of all. Torah is the Nekuda Hatichena von alle Inyanim. Torah, Shavuos is connected with Torah because it's Zman Matan Torah Sena, when Torah was given. So Shavuos is the center axis. Why? Because Torah is the center point of all things, all matters. Das was Shavuos ist nicht mehr wie ein Tag, nicht wie Pesach und Sukkot, welche seien in 7 und 8 Tagen, ist nicht, weil der Yom Tov is a calendar, nor adrabah. This, that Shavuos is only one day. Biblically, it's one day. Rabbinically, we observe 2 days outside of the land of Israel. But this, that Shavuos is one day, as opposed to Pesach, which is 7 days, and biblically. And Sukkot, which is 8 days, if you're including Shmini Atzeres. That is not because Shavuos is smaller or less significant. Adrabah, to the contrary. Der Yom Echad von Chag Shavuos tut auf dem Inyan von Umich Chamcha Kisro Ge Echad Ba'aretz. It's because Shavuos, why is it one day? Because it's expressing the idea of, and who is like your people, Israel, one nation on earth. So the Goy Echad Ba'aretz, the fact that Yidden are called a special nation. Goy means a nation. Goy Echad means a nation of oneness, or a nation, not just a nation of unity, but a nation that brings about the oneness of Hashem in the world. That's why it's ba'aretz, on the earth. That even in the earth, the Jewish people reveal the underlying unity of it all. So that oneness is expressed in the fact that Shavuos is one day. Das ist wie Frey gesagt, dass mit das in Achtos is in Torah, shenit na b'chedesh shlishi dafka. And like we were saying before, the whole point of Torah is oneness, which also is, we said, is connected to the idea that Torah was given in the third month. So then why isn't Shavuos 3 days? Okay, don't make trouble. Okay, please, don't start with me. Okay. Top of the second column, page 303. Vav in Kavim Tzoi Zayin Nifran Tzvei Milas. Now, the center axis has two virtues to it. Aleph, Kavim Tzoi is Meshuach von the andere zwei Kavim. Also wie mir gefunden in Gemara, the central axis is better than the other two extremes, than the two extremes. Like the Gemara says, Rav be'emtza gadol miminai v'katan mismalo. That when you have like sages walking, so the master should walk in the center, then his greater student should be on his right side, and his lesser student should be on his left side. But who's in the center? The master. Okay. So the center is the best. You know, when we were little kids, we used to taunt people, and it made no sense to me. We used to say, first is the worst, second is the best. Really? Third is the one with the polka dotted dress. I heard third is the bird without a nest. First is the best. First is the worst. Second is the best. Third is the bird with, because third is the bird rhymes. Third is the bird without a nest. You said third is the one with the polka dotted dress. It's a near rhyme. What's wrong with the polka dotted dress? Just a fact. There's no judgment. Okay, but the Kavim Tzoi is qualitatively superior to the extremes, to the left and the right and the left. Okay, now, the second virtue of the Kavim Tzoi base. Kavim Tzoi is the Sherish of alle Kavim Vorum. Kavim Tzoi Ela Ada Keser Sherish Amaka L'chol HaSfiros. Actually, it's even more than that. It's not just superior to them. The central axis is the source of all other axes, because the central axis ascends all the way to Keser. Keser, the crown, that is the proto-sphera. It is a sphera, but it's not in the sphera's chart or system. Spheres start from Chochmah, Reishis Chochmah. Keser is the crown above Chochmah, like the crown on the head. Chochmah is in the head, and the crown's like what's on top of the head. So that's the makif, the great encompassing force. So the central axis rises all the way up off the charts and into. So yes, we're comparing left and right, or right and left, to the center. So one is that the center is qualitatively superior. The other thing we're saying is actually the center is different in that it is the source of everything else. Everything else comes from or derives from it. In dem Emzoi von Chag Shavuos voran beide Meiles, the same thing you find. Shavuos is also the Kav Emzoi. Like we said, Pesach and Shavuos are the two extremes, and Shavuos is the central point, just like Torah is the central point. Okay, so we find these two virtues with Shavuos. Aleph, Chag Shavuos is hecher von andere Yom Tovim. Shavuos is higher than the other holidays. Beis Shavuos is gegeben geworden die Torah. In welcher stehen alle Moedim. On Shavuos, the Torah was given. And how do you even know about any of the other holidays? Because it's in Torah. Take that. So if it weren't for the Torah that was given on Shavuos, or let's say it like this, if it weren't for the fact that on Shavuos we were given the Torah, you wouldn't know about any other Yom Tov. So you see, Shavuos is the source of all the other holidays. Just like we said, that the central axis isn't just qualitatively superior to the other axes, but the source of them as well, just like Shavuos is the source of the other holidays. No. Vigaret Frere. When Beshevkin gets here later, you can pop out all your memes. Okay. David Beshevkin's coming later. JFYI, today Rosh Chodesh Sivan is the yard site of Franz Kafka. And so David Beshevkin, my dear friend, is going to come verbreng with me at 2:30 p.m. here at the Soulwords House, Lakovid, Kafka's yard site. Okay, but you never knew that before. Yeah. Vigaret Frere is der Iker Inyan von Chag Shavuos Torah. Now the main aspect of Shavuos is all about Torah. Die Meile von Limera Torah of Kiyama Mitzvos is in Beiden Yonam. Now, the superiority of Torah, meaning learning Torah, as opposed to mitzvahs, meaning doing mitzvahs, is in both of these areas that we just highlighted. Aleph mitzvahs Talmud Torah is grasser von alle mitzvahs Kamam Zava Talmud Torah Kenegud Kulam. Torah study is qualitatively superior to all other mitzvahs. Like we say, Talmud Torah Kenegud Kulam, and the study of Torah is tantamount to them all. Base, but then the second thing, Talmud Torah is der Sheidish was bringt alle mitzvahs Kamam as a Gadol Talmud Shemevi Lidimaisa. But also Torah study is the source of all the mitzvahs. Like we say, great is study for it brings to deed. What does that mean, great is study for it brings to deed? There was a big debate, Talmudic debate, what's greater, the study or the deed? In the end, they concluded study, because without study, you don't know what to do. So great is study because it brings to deed. It tells you what to do. What, are you going to just start randomly doing stuff and hope that you'll, by chance, hit a mitzvah? You have to first study to know what the mitzvahs are. Then you can do. Okay. Die Erklärung, you see where we are, Zayin, bottom of 303, second column. Die Erklärung in them is Taryag mitzvah, Zayin Keneged, Taryag Evarim. The 613 commandments correspond to the 613 limbs. Let's break that down even further. Ramach mitzvah say Keneged, Ramach Evarim, Shasa mitzvah leisa say Keneged, Shasa Gidim. You have the 365, I'm sorry, let's go in correct order. 248 positive commandments correspond to the 248 limbs of the body. 365 don'ts, prohibitions, correspond to the, we'll call them, well, they're literally called Gidim. We'll call them blood vessels. That's what I'm going to call them here. Okay? Torah is Meichen. Und Punkt wie, okay. So the mitzvahs correspond to the body. Torah corresponds to what? Torah is Meichen, brains. Und Punkt wie die Meile von Meichen auf alle Evarim is a Zwein Dicker. Now the advantage or the greatness of the brain over all the rest of the body parts is twofold. The same 2 points. We're going to reiterate again. Aleph, der Chayes von Meichen is hecher von dem Chayes was in alle Iberke Evarim. The vitality that animates the brain is a higher sort of energy than the energy that enlivens the other limbs. So it's qualitatively superior. Base, but then also in Moyach is kolol euch der Chayes was in alle Evarim und is auf sei asherish. Not only is brain power qualitatively superior to all the other powers of the body, but also it is the source of them, because they are all included within it. Azoi is euch die Meile von Torah auf die andere mitzvahs wie eben declared. And that's the same relationship that Torah has to the mitzvahs, like we explained above. It is qualitative. It is qualitatively superior. The power of Torah is qualitatively superior in its own right over the quality of the mitzvahs. And then furthermore, it is also, Torah, it is also the source of all of the mitzvahs. Just like Shavuos, we're saying, is qualitatively superior to both Pesach and Sukkot. And yet, even more than that, Shavuos, being the day that Torah was given, and Torah being the source of all of the holidays, is the source for all of the other holidays. Yeah. Did you turn the page? Yes, we did, sir. Ches. You ready? Please turn over the tape to the other side. Nochameile. Nochameile. Another advantage in Torah that Torah has, as Oisedi Dirmantamilas, in addition to the above mentioned virtues that we already enumerated. Oh, we are. Nochamaila is da in Kavem Tzoi. Yes, right? Nochamaila is da in Kavem Tzoi Sha'ila ad Penimius va'atzmos ha'kaser hecher von Shedish ha'makar ha'svirish b'kaser. Another advantage that the central axis has is that it goes up to the inner dimensions, to the inner aspect of Keser, higher than the source of all of the spheroids. Azai is euch in Torah, as Eise die der Mantemailas, was sie bringt zu Maisa Mitzvos und ist Größe von allen Mitzvos, was da seine Meiles in Mitzvos Talmud Torah, is euch für eine Meile in Torah Mitzvot Atzma, was sie ist Chochmas Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ve'ye etzlei Amen. But then there's another thing. With Torah, I mean, we said before, Torah is like not just qualitatively superior to the mitzvahs, but it is the source for all the mitzvahs. But there's like a deeper aspect of it as well. Just like we're saying, the Kavam Tzoi, the central axis, rises up to Keser, higher than the source. So source is one thing, but this is even higher than source. So too, it's not just the virtue of Torah, it's the source for the mitzvahs. There's something about the virtue of Torah unto itself. Forget about even translating Torah into practical deed. Obviously, Hamaisahu Iyar and Dira B'Tachtenim, obviously. But there is an inherent value to Torah just for its own sake, just for the oneness that Torah brings about between the person and the one who learns it. Or the quote here is, Ve'eye etzlei Amen, which is a sort of mystical reading of a verse in Mishlei, in Shlomo Melech's Proverbs, which is talking about the Torah's relationship with Hashem. Was das is euch der EMES Inyan von Limud Torah Lishma, and that is what it means learning Torah Lishma. Lishma means for its own sake. There are many interpretations of Limud Torah Lishma, for its own sake. But here what it means is not even in order to know what to do, but just because of the inherent value of Torah as this unifier. Kipshat haloshin, l'shema Torah atzma. That's the actually most literal reading of the word lishma. Lishma means for its own sake, for the sake of Torah itself. Torah for the sake of Torah. Afilo nitzulib visin vizich zufiren. Not even for the sake of knowing how to behave. In fact, not even for the sake of doing the mitzvah of learning Torah. Nor learning Torah to live Torah alone, but learning Torah for the sake of Torah itself. Al derech marshal, a kind was hat Zeit nit gesehen sein Vater. There was a child. This is a parable, just a parable. Don't cry. Who is this child? Help him. No, it's just a parable. There was a little child. I don't know if he was little, actually. I think he was your age, you said. I think he was 23. I'm saying Chavdala for you now. There was once a 23-year-old child. And he was setting up plastic forks on the tables for the group from Toronto that's coming after this year. No, that's not the parable. There was a child who had not seen his father in a while. Rufterem, be'es der Zetem, chapte sich herum mit sein Vater dem Melech. Oh, now he's a king's kid? Did it say he was a king's kid? Now all of a sudden it says he's the king. Und haus den Kushtem. Was das ist nicht zu lieb. Der Teilles, was wird von ihm haben, nur zu lieb dem Vater allein. So they didn't see each other for a while. And then when he sees his father, he hugs him and he kisses him. I'm thinking the child hugs and kisses the father. It's not because of any benefit he's going to receive from him, but rather just because he's his father. Like, what are you doing that for? What do you mean, what am I doing it for? It's my father. Yeah, but you're going to get something from that? No, that's not why I'm doing it. Okay. Azoi chayid. So to a Jew. V'nor hat a leideke minut. If a Jew has a spare moment, was ken reingapen as aviv melech durch Torah, where he can grab onto his father, the king, through learning Torah. Oisi atem like him, like the sages say, you are taking me when you learn Torah. You are taking me, Hashem says. Trach der nit b'shas meise wegen kein Zach. He's not thinking about anything else at that moment. Nit wegen leidas amaise. He's not thinking about, oh, I'm going to learn Torah so I'll know how to behave myself. Nit wegen ki mitzvahs talmud Torah. He's not even thinking, oh, let me learn Torah so I'll do the mitzvah of learning Torah. Chabt sich on in Torah allein, weil reist for kutchabrichu kol echad. But rather, he just grabs onto Torah itself because Torah and Hashem are one. That's it. It's like a little child hugging his father. Right, Yisrael? It's like a pure little child hugging his father when you learn Torah. Okay. Like them, wird man verstehen. See where we are? Tess. Like them, wird man verstehen euch verstehen, was es steht in Gemara. Hillel mechayev niyim v'Rabbi Elazar ben Chars mechayev ashirim. The Gemara says, we're going to understand now what the Gemara says. Hillel obligates the poor, and Rabbi Elazar ben Charsim obligates the rich. Hillel was poor, and nevertheless he studied. There's a man lying there. You know what that is? No. Sherry Lubavitch? There's a man lying there. Hillel didn't have money, and he had to hang out in the skylight. Anyways, Hillel was poor. Hillel came from very far away, but they wouldn't let him in to learn because he couldn't pay. So he climbed up on the roof in the freezing rain and wind and snow, because the Torah he was yearning to know. Malka Tauger made it. Hillel was poor. Is it really? Hillel was poor, and nevertheless he learned Torah. Because a lot of people say, I'm too poor to learn. Rabbi Elazar ben Charsim was rich, and nevertheless he learned Torah. What's wrong? Okay. Think I broke the mic?
I don't think you broke the mic. I thought maybe the system went like AWOL.
Oh. You're breaking my camera. Please turn away from my camera. Clarence, the puppet. Nobody knows my references. I'm the loneliest man in the world. Sitting here giving this share, making references to Clarence the puppet. Nobody knows it. Breaking my camera. Please go away. Okay. Someone in the YouTube comments, please, in the YouTube comments, if you know my references, please just drop a comment. Okay. So, yeah. Now we're going to understand this Gemara. It says that Hillel obligates the poor, and Rabbi Elazar ben Harsim obligates the rich. Oy, bezwellen kommen in die Imun, Schirm und Teinen, als sie haben nicht gelernt mit Zade, hat hier da. Someone wrote in the comments, the page is white, attaboy Yisrael. Because last week the pages were yellow. Past 2 weeks the pages were yellow. If someone's going to come and argue, I couldn't learn Torah, I was too busy. Either because I was busy being poor, I was busy being rich. Vet men zij brengen a raya von Hillel and Rabbi Elazar ben Harsim, we're going to say, no excuse. Hillel's the proof that poor people can learn. Rabbi Elazar ben Harsim is the proof that rich people can learn. In Flog, Mamanuvshach. At first, it's like, I don't get it. Either way you look at it. If das is a falsche Verentferung, if this is a false claim, und bei EMES haben sie gehabt Zeit zu lernen, and they did have time to learn, darf man doch nicht ankommen zu Hillel und Rabbi Elazar ben Harsim. You don't need to produce these proofs by saying, oh, look at him. Es ist doch befeirishtige tzivui. This is an explicit command of the Torah. V'agisa be yom v'layla. That you should toil in the Torah day and night. You should meditate in the Torah day and night. Oib es is given ein Weile, was hat gekannt lernen und nicht gelernt. If there was a moment that he could have learned and he didn't, is doch bechlal ki dvar Hashem bazav v'gomer. He is in the category of those who despise the words of Hashem. Und ob sie haben Tage bei EMES nicht gehabt, kein Zeit auf lernen, wie kann man sie mechayiv sein? And if truly they had no time for learning, how are you going to hold them accountable? Meaning to say, if they really didn't have time to learn, what are you going to say? But Hillel could learn, but Rabbi Elazar ben Harsim could learn. Okay, they could do it. But if this guy was really not able, then he was really not able. So either way, says the Rebbe, I don't get why you're pulling out Hillel for the poor people and Rabbi Elazar ben Harsim for the rich people. If the guy was able to learn and he had time to learn and he didn't learn, then he's accountable for that, whether you produce these historical figures as proofs or not. And if he truly didn't have time, on the other hand, to learn, then even if you're going to produce these historical figures as proof, you can't hold this guy accountable. He truly didn't have time to learn. Is doch a Reihe davon, als es ist da eine Möglichkeit, was mit Zadadin, mit Zad Mitzvos Talmud Torah, is min potter. So the Rebbe Chiddush here. This is a very interesting perspective. The Rebbe says this is actually a proof that there could be a situation where technically, within the parameters of the mitzvah, the commandment of Torah study, the person was actually exempt because of his other he was otherwise preoccupied. So he was actually exempt. Und von deswegen zu leben dem Koch und Geschmack, was darf sein in Torah. But, nevertheless, because you're supposed to enjoy Torah, and you're supposed to get excited about Torah, which is one with Hashem. Chapt men sich zu der Torah, the person should, out of passion, just go gravitate toward Torah. Even when technically he's exempt. So it's not saying we're going to hold people accountable and say to them, no, you really weren't exempt when they were. And it's not the reverse either of saying to them, of people who weren't exempt, needing to bring these two historical figures as an argument. But rather, what's happening here? Technically, legally, they were exempt. So there's no actual accountability on that level. Nevertheless, we're going to say to them, and you know what? Even though technically you were exempt, but you should have found Torah so exciting and geschmack so delicious that you should have found a way to do it even when you didn't have to. Just like Hillel, just like Rabbi Elazar ben Harsim. Yeah. Yud. Und das ist euch der Tam, was Torah wird angerufen, EMES, Kammemerzal, ein EMES ala Torah. This is why Torah is also called EMES, truth. Like we say, ein EMES ala Torah. There is no truth but Torah. Der Inn von EMES is was es hat nicht kein Hefsek. Explaining this often, that EMES means something that is uninterrupted. Das was hat the Hefsek is nicht EMES. If it has an interruption, it's not EMES. It's not truth. Yidu be'inyan notice hamechazvin, EMES is tikoin load. Okay, there's a concept in halacha about lying streams. What are lying streams? It's regarding if a stream is considered to be part of a wellspring that would be considered a mikvah for the purposes of ritual purification. So if it dries up once in a while, even as rarely as once in 7 years, it's not a real wellspring. It's called, the term for it in the Mishnah is naharis mechazvin, which means it's lying. It's false. Why is it lying? Because it dries up once in 7 years? Yeah. Because a lie is something that is intermittent. It stops, it ceases, even briefly. And in contrast, EMES, truth, is something that never stops. That's also why it says, this is a verse from Mishlei, it's Tzvas EMES tikun la'ad. The truth is set up forever. So truth is enduring. Truth is constant. Anything that is not enduring and constant is not truth. Was das is euch merumas in diesius aleph mem tav. This is also hinted to in the letters of the word EMES. The estate in Yerushalmi, like the Yerushalmi says, as aleph is tchilas ha'esius. Aleph is the first letter of the aleph base. Mem, emtsois, ha'esius. Mem is the center point. Und Tav, Seif ha'esius. Tav is the last one. Und der Inyan von EMES is, has umatom, beim Onheim, inmitten, zum Sof, is gleich. And that's what EMES is. That it's the same at the beginning, in the middle, and the end. It's always the same. Und der Rebbe wird Torah angerufen EMES. That's why Torah is called EMES. Weil sie hat nicht keine Agbalas, because it has no limits. Mitzvos seien begrenzt in Zeit und Ort. Think about it like this. Mitzvahs, commandments, are limited in time and space. Right? You think about the prerequisites for doing a mitzvah. I mean, just to give you a really simple example, obvious example, like keeping Shabbos. You can't. No, you're going to say you could. That's not a good example because you could commemorate Shabbos every day. Okay, but I'm saying the prohibition of labor on Shabbos, you can only do on Shabbos. I'll give you an even easier one. Eating matzah on Pesach, you can only do on Pesach. It's not a mitzvah you do it any other time. We're shaking the lulav, you can only do it on Sukkot. Then there's things that are limited to places. I don't know, like mitzvahs have to do with the land. You know, agricultural mitzvahs have to do with Eretz Yisrael, with the land itself. Or mitzvahs have to do with korbanos, with ritual offerings, sacrifices that can only be done in the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple itself. Okay? So mitzvahs, just in general, mitzvahs as physical actions, being that they're physical actions, they are ruled by parameters of time and space. And so they have limitations to certain temporal and spatial definitions. What's that noise? Hear that weird noise? What? There's no cat here right now. Yisrael? What's that weird noise? You see, maybe one of the stray cats walked in here. Yeah. What were you squeaking? Candle. Squeaking the candle? Oh, okay. I thought maybe one of the stray cats walked in the house. We have these stray cats that hang around this house. They don't normally come inside, but sometimes they do. Now, Torah study as a mitzvah also has limitations, time limitations. Die welche seinen Torah in their Geschäften al pi Torah, seine Potter von Limera Torah. People who are busy with business, they are exempt at those times. In der Zeit, was sie müssen haben fahren ASIC, times that they need for business. They're exempt during those times. Wie es wird erklärt, die Prati dinim von dem in Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Talmud Torah, like it's all explained very clearly in the laws of Torah study in the Code of Jewish Law. Also, v'hamakim, also spatially, not just temporally, but spatially, there are limits for the mitzvah of learning Torah. Was in Mekemes Tunofim, Tormen nit to learn in places that are dirty, you're not allowed to learn. Aber Torah allein hat kein Agbalas nit. But Torah itself, not as a mitzvah of learning Torah, but just Torah itself has no limitations. Nit von Zmanu, nit von Mokim. Steht in Gemara la'einsei shani, that Torah itself is completely unlimited, has no limitations of place or time, or like the Gemara in Kiddushin says that la'einsei shani, that if one is compelled, it is different. By the way, I've mentioned before the incredible work of Sichos in English, and I think there's a link in every YouTube description to the Sichos in English version of each of these Sichos that we're learning. I'm going to read to you from an explanatory footnote from Sichos in English that explains what does it mean la'einsei shani. In that source, the Talmud explains that one is permitted to contemplate matters of Torah everywhere except for the bathhouse and the lavatory. However, there are times when Torah thoughts come to him unbidden. They are beyond his control, as it were. Therefore, if they enter his mind, even while in the lavatory, he is not held liable for disobeying this prohibition. Now, why would thoughts of Torah come to a person while he's in the lavatory? Not because he was seeking to fulfill the mitzvah of Torah study. Quite the contrary, it's forbidden to study Torah there. But because he's bonded so intrinsically with the Torah that he is compelled to study. Since his Torah study results from this inner bond, it has no limit, neither in time nor in place. This unbounded commitment to Torah study results from the unbounded nature of the Torah itself. Since it is one with God who has no limits, it also has no limits and produces an unlimited commitment among those who bond with it. That's from the Mimer entitled V'Kibala Yehudim 5711 Tafshin Yud Aleph from the Rebbe. Okay, you get it? So mitzvahs are all governed by time-space regulations, stipulations. Even the mitzvah of Torah study as a mitzvah, has time and space limitations. Time based on your availability. Space based on places that are proper where to study and places that are improper to study. But Torah itself, and this is again connected to the idea of just the excitement and the passion that one has, like that little child who spontaneously hugs his father, not for any other reason than just he sees his father. So it could even be that you're in a place where you're not supposed to be learning Torah, and you're trying not to think it. Nevertheless, it's coming to you. Okay. B'negei l'apel, Yud Aleph, Yud Aleph, second column of 305. B'negei l'apel, practically speaking, is men darf halten in ein lernen Torah. We have to be constantly studying Torah. Nicht lernen zu lieb zu sein fahren Shulchan Aruch und sof kol sof bringt es zu machen a cheshbon als al pi Shulchan Aruch kann zu sein mit Perek Echod Shachos and Perek Echod Arvis. Not to try to learn because we're trying to discharge our obligation, and then we'll finally come to figure out, oh, well, technically, the bare minimum obligation is one lesson in the morning, one lesson at night. No. Warum außerdem, was man darf wissen, sie sein Cheshben halt Tage eis al pi Shulchan Aruch. Warum es kann sein, als hat gar mehr Zeit, bemele ist euch al pi Shulchan Aruch mechuyev mehr. Außerdem, a viele es ist so wie halt, ist aber mit dem Geschmack und Kochen Teure darf man halten in ein Lernen. So, aside from the fact that maybe even he's going to find out that he actually technically is obligated to learn more than what he thought he was obligated to learn, meaning he actually has more free time than what he thought. Like the famous story that never happened. The guy asked the Rav, I have 5 minutes a day and only 5 minutes a day to learn. Should I learn Chassidus or should I learn Halacha? He says, you should learn Chassidus. Why? Because if you learn Chassidus 5 minutes a day, you'll realize you have way more than 5 minutes a day to learn. All right. At any rate, so first of all, he may find out he actually has more time to learn and therefore is obligated to learn more. But it's more than that. It's because even really, forget about the obligation for a second. Set that aside. If you're excited to learn Torah, if you have that excitement, like the little child who's excited to hug his father who he hasn't seen, then it doesn't even matter what you're, by the letter of the law, how much you're obligated. You're just constantly trying to learn more and more. Euch nit machen keine Cheshbonos, as der Godel Talmud is doch leida es amaisa. And furthermore, it says that at this level, you have to be careful. Please, people, I cannot deal with people who want to be one-dimensional thinkers. I cannot deal with people who get locked into something and then they cannot ever be flexible in their understanding of it. Please, 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 I beg of you, a little nuanced thinking. Please, enough with the black and white thinking. Of course, we constantly stress, we're making a dwelling place in the lower realms. Everything has to come to actual physical action. It's not enough just to have it in the abstract. It's all about doing. I know that, and other times we're going to talk about that. But right now, in this immediate context, what we're saying is this. When we're learning Torah, it should be not for the sake of knowing how to conduct yourself practically. I remember Rabbi Heller in Hillel, when I was in Hillel 25 years ago, and he gave a schmooze there, and he was talking about, I didn't like people learning smicha. I finished smicha in Hillel, because he felt like, he wasn't saying not to learn smicha. Obviously the Rebbe said to learn smicha, but he was saying, I remember he told me, he asked me, why don't I learn Maseches Nazir? You want me to learn Nazir? Why Nazir? His point was something that is completely no practicality. No practicality, right? Smicha, you could say, Basa B'cholav, that stuff happens every Monday and Thursday, right? Yeah, that's what I probably should have said. Yeah. So you should not learn because you're trying to know what to do. Es beeis as es wird kommen zu Mascheile, wird sich wegsetzen und durchtangen, den von dem Mocker in Chumash mit der Gemara und alle Shenim und Achreinim bis dem alten Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. He wants to be ready that if someone's going to ask him a question in Halacha, he's going to pull out the Chumash and he's going to trace it down from Chumash down through the Shenim and Achreinim, all the way down to the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Aber Bashar says, Lamaisis as nit negea learned in it. But if it's not going to be practical, he's not going to learn it. Darf man wissen? No, you got to know. As der Iker in Inyan von Torah is Torah zu lib Torah. The main purpose of Torah is for itself. Torah for the sake of Torah. Und man darf halten in ein lernen Torah jeder Rege und jagdel Torah v'yadir. You should be constantly learning more Torah every moment that you can, making the Torah great and glorious. Good base. Top of page 306. Light them. Please turn over the tape to the other side.
Anyone knew your reference of you're breaking my camera?
Someone wrote from, if not now, when 770, yes, I know your references. Wow, this blinking AI changed charity in my comments to the name of that idolater.
This effing AI. Someone's complaining that they tried writing a comment for charity.
Okay.
And it changed the auto type of AI, changed it to name of idolater.
Okay, I have no idea what that's talking about.
Skim over it.
I can just let that go. So, if not now, 1770 says, I know your references. Okay, what is the reference to? You're breaking my camera, please. I'm begging you nicely, I think is what he says. I'm begging you. Yeah, tell me what that reference is. Okay. Should we continue?
Yes.
Getting tired. I need to take a nap. Let's come back later. Oh my goodness. Okay, so please turn it off. You distracted me. Okay.
I was just gonna wake you up.
Okay. Oh, you woke me up. Yeah, I do want. Can you wait? Hold on 1 second.
You're off camera.
Sir.
Sir.
Okay. All my kids know you never do bird beak fingers to get the attention of waitstaff. It is dehumanizing. That is not how you communicate with any human being. So all my kids know that. Don't ever be the person, sir. Okay. Yeah.
Let's not lose our pace though.
Leut dem Alamen wird man euch verstehen dem Chiluk zwischen Torah und Mitzvos lagabi Ktanim. Wow. Now, according to everything we said, you can understand the difference between Torah and Mitzvos for children. Von alle Mitzvos seinen Ktanim Potter, es ist da Mitzvah mitzad Chayvus Chinuch, aber die Mitzvah ist nur mit Divrei Sofrim and the mitzvah is auf den Vater and nicht auf den Cotton. Children actually are exempt from mitzvahs. They're going to say, what about chinuch? Yeah, hold on a second. First of all, that's rabbinic, not biblical. Second of all, more importantly, whose mitzvah is chinuch? It's the mother and father's commandment. It's the mother and father's obligation to educate the child. It's not the child's commandment. Not the child's obligation. So actually, children have no obligation to mitzvahs. That's why when you become a 13-year-old boy or a 12-year-old girl, you're called a bar or bas mitzvah. That's when you first have a connection to be obligated in mitzvahs. Aber bei Torah steht mitzvahs esim in a Torah, hallo of, lalamed es b'nei a cotton Torah, is a da chiyuv, eich of in ben, as is chayev lilmei des atzmei kishiyakir. But regarding Torah study, it says it's a positive commandment on the father. Yes, on the father, Taka, to teach a small child Torah. And furthermore, there's an obligation on the son. He's obligated to learn by himself as soon as he attains understanding. Der Tam of der Mitzvah seinen Bagbala, aber Torah, was sie is blieb gvul, is by alle Yidden. Mitzvahs are limited. Like we said before, there's a time and a place for mitzvahs. Also, there are people who do mitzvahs and they don't do, but are obligated and not obligated. But Torah transcends all the limitations and categories, and even little children have a connection to Torah. Der Far, Yud Gimel. Der Far hat man bei Matan Torah gefordert die Arvos von Bonim. That's why before the Torah was given, Hashem said, give me guarantors. And the only acceptable guarantors were the children. Bei die Mitzvahs, Schnitztava b'marav, hat man kein Arvos nicht gedarft und darf bei Matan Torah hat man gedarft Arvos, gefordert Arvos. It's interesting. Hashem gave mitzvahs at Mara, like we've mentioned Mara a few times, one of the stations in the wilderness between splitting of the sea and giving the Torah. And Hashem did not ask for guarantors to give those mitzvahs. But before giving Torah, you can come sing it. You want to sing it? It's going to be a little kinderlach. Before giving mitzvahs, Hashem did not require guarantors. Before giving Torah, Hashem required guarantors. We're talking about Torah as opposed to mitzvahs. Torah as just connecting to Hashem through knowing His will and wisdom. Like them, wird es sein verstandig. Now it's going to be understood. Der Iyar Inyan von Matan Torah is nicht Nesinas or mitzvahs nor Nesinas Torah. The main thing of Torah, of Matan Torah, was not the mitzvahs, it was the Torah. Was ihr Chiyuv is euch auf Ktanim, wie bald es euch Ktanim, seine Bechuim belimmer Torah, steht dem Eile in sei Davke, wie führt dort euch in Medrash, that's why, because Matan Torah was about Torah, and Torah applies to everyone, even children. That's why the children were the guarantors for the Torah, or like it says, the Medrash explains on the Pasuk in Tehillim, from the mouths of babes and sucklings, that means nursing little infants, you have established strength. You sadatois, you establish strength. Strength means Torah. Und das ist der Inyan. Und das ist der Inyan. Was Torah is EMES. That's why we say Torah is truth. EMES is von Aleph bis Tov, Aleph until Tov. Von der höchsten Medrege bis der niedrigste, from the highest level to the lowest. Von ein Seite sagt man, as Torah is Eimek Rum. Hecher von Leide Samaise. Hecher von Inyanim was seine verbunden mit Tessiah. On one hand, we say Torah is the highest, it's so high, it's higher than practicality, higher than knowing what to do. Von der zweite Seite, on the other side, we say, is da Torah euch in Eimek Tachas, bis Ktanim shepturim mikol mitzvahs. And on the other hand, Torah is the lowest. It goes all the way down to little kids who are exempt from mitzvahs. Das is euch a hesber. Das is euch a hesber. This is also an explanation of the roof was mir gefunden dem loschen Yagdol Torah v'yadir in Tzvik Tzavis Havchim. There's an expression Yagdol Torah v'yadir. Rabbi Chanan, Rabbi Nakashem, Rabbi Zaknish Barak Olizak, is Leficha Hebalahem Torah Mitzvah Shem Chavitul Man Tzidka Yagdol Torah v'yadir. Said that hundreds of times, 3 times a day, every day, for the past year and a half, pretty much. So probably like 400 or 500. No. Yeah, probably over 1,000 times. Probably getting up to a couple thousand times. I said Kaddish last year. I'm saying Kaddish this year. The context for where this phrase, Yagdil Torah v'yadir, Hashem wanted to make Torah great and glorious, it appears in 2 opposite sources. In ein Ort steht der Loshen legabe malamde tneikes. In one context, it's about a school teacher. As der Rabbi geht nicht on kein hasagas gvul, val yagdil Torah v'yadir. That if you have a school teacher and then another guy wants to also set up shop and be a teacher of children, we do not say it's hasagas gvul, encroachment, like normally we do. We say, if a guy wants to set up a shoe store next door to another guy's shoe store, the market can't sustain that kind of competition, then we tell him he can't do it. But with a teacher of Torah, we don't say that. Why? Because Yagdil Torah v'yadir. We want to make Torah as great as possible. So, adarabah, to the contrary, let there be more and more teachers of Torah. Das ist doch ein Eifen von Reishis Tchilas Halimod Eimek Tachas. That's talking about the beginning level of learning, talking about little kids. In a zweiten Ort, redt sich es legabe simone dog toher. The other context where it says Yagdil Teda V'Yadir is when it's talking about the signs of a kosher fish. Sagt die Gemara, kol sheyesh lei kaskas yesh lei snapir, und zu lib was steht euch snapir. We know that any fish that has scales also has fins. There's no such thing as a fish that has scales and doesn't have fins. So why does Torah have to waste, so to speak, an extra word by telling us fins? Just tell us scales and we would know already. So the Gemara says, no, to make the Torah great and glorious, to add words to the Torah. There you're talking about the highest level of Torah, Torah for its own sake. Because there's no practical difference. By adding the word fins does not make any practical difference in life. It's just to have more words of Torah with which to connect to Hashem. Hecher von Leidas HaMaisa, higher than knowing what to do. So, Yagdil Teda V'Yadir, in the context of, can you have another Malamed, another school teacher teaching little kids? Yeah, sure, Yagdil Teda V'Yadir. So you're talking about little kids learning Torah on the most basic level. And then, why does it say snappier if we already know kaskas? Doesn't really add anything practically. Yagdil Teda V'Yadir. Because every word of Torah, just the fact that it's a word in Torah has intrinsic value. So you're talking about the lowest level and the highest level. Und in alle Fanem in Limura Torah, von dem höchsten Eifen bis dem niedrigsten, sagt man, Yagdil Teda V'Yadir und Eisiatem Leikechim. But that's the point. From the lowest, most basic, rudimentary level to the highest, most advanced level, most abstract level, rarefied level, all of it, we say, Yagdil Teda V'Yadir, let Torah be great and glorious, and Atem, Oisi Atem Leikechim, you are taking me, Hashem says, you are interfacing with me, myself, through Torah. Das ist euch, was es steht, and it doesn't matter the lowest level or the highest level, it's all the same. Das ist euch, was es steht, this is also what it means when it says, Karev Hashem l'chol keirov, l'chayel asher yikru ve'emes. It's a pasuk, it's in Tehillim. It's in Ashrei, actually. Karev Hashem l'chol keirov, l'chayel asher yikru ve'emes. Hashem is close to all who call out to him in truth. So one way to read that is people who call out to Hashem truthfully. Like they really mean it when they call out to him. No, but another one is, how do they call out to him? Be-emes, with this tool called EMES. And what's EMES? Vein EMES ala Torah. Truth is Torah. So they use Torah to call out to Hashem, meaning their mechanism of connecting to Hashem is through Torah. As in alalei fanim l'chayel asher yikru, all those who call out, mit EMES, was das is Torah, all those who call out with Torah, is Karev Hashem nemt men atzmos. You are actually taking the essence of Hashem. Like the well-known principle, the mystical principle. What is an essence? An essence is that which, when you take any part of it, you are taking the whole thing, because it's indivisible. That's what essence means. It's indivisible, irreducible. Der Etzem is umatum der selber. The essence is the same everywhere. Meaning to say, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be the littlest kid. It could be the biggest scholar. Doesn't matter. Any Jew who learns any part of Torah on any level is connecting to the oneness of Hashem thereby. Der Eibishter soll geben. This is like a bracha. The Eibishter soll geben. Wait, Yisrael. What's with the page you're showing?
Wrong page?
Yeah. Like you skipped the page? I'm on Tez Zion.
You skipped the page.
Taking your own sweet time walking around all those tables. I'm begging you nicely. The Eibishter soll geben. Yeah, Tez Zion. Der Eibishter soll geben. The Rebbe is benching us. He's saying a prayer for us. Der Eibishter soll geben. Ben Zoltan in Limera Torah. And Alalei Fanim, Hashem should bless us that we should learn Torah in all the manners that were described here. Und in Zeh alle beefen von Yagdel Torah v'yadir, in a manner of let Torah be great and glorious. Was durch dem wird sein die Heilada, was kommt von jem Chasunosei, Zeh Matan Torah. And then you can have the birth that comes from the wedding. You know, we say that Matan Torah is the wedding of Hashem. Hashem married the Jewish people. Har Sinai was like the chuppah. Torah was like the ksuba, the marriage contract, so on and so forth. So the purpose of the wedding is to have the birth. So then, if you're going to learn Torah in the way that we described it, real oneness, uniting with Hashem, then you're going to have, after you have such a yichud, then obviously you're going to have the conception and the birth. And then, wow, that's powerful. Childbirth is when you have offspring that resembles you, has your essence. Your child doesn't just have your revealed capacities, they have even your untapped potentials. So that's what I mean, similar to your essence. So if we unite with Hashem, so to speak, in a marriage of Torah, and then we give birth, so to speak, and this child that's born from it is doima latzmusi yisbarach, is a semblance of Hashem's own essence. It's deep stuff. Vet durchton dem binyan ha'olam. And then what are we going to do? We're going to bring about a building of the world. Men vet machen von dem Mate und durch dem Mate euch von dem Meile adira leisbarech. Wow. We're going to transform the lower realm, the physical realm. And then by transforming the lower realm, we're also going to transform the upper realm into adira, a dwelling place for Hashem himself. Okay. Now there's a bunch of asterisks, which kind of means it's like a new sicha. It's not exactly a new sicha. Yud Zayin. I think what it means is that this sicha and the next sicha are all from the same original Farbrengen, which is Shavuos Tavshin Chai. This is a short little one here. Okay. Yud Zayin. Short little sicha. Shavuos ist als man mesugel zu starken sich in abhitten die Tekone von Kved Gris Meir v'chami Admor belimor Ashiyur im Chumash Tehillim und Tanya b'chol yem. Shavuos is a special propitious time for strengthening oneself in chitas. So can you bring me the two versions of chitas that we have, just that can show them off? We'll talk about them a little bit. Okay, sir. Can you just don't run away? This is the Chayenu Chitas Schottenstein edition. I want to give a shout out to my good friends David and Ida Schottenstein, who sponsored this incredible work. And then you have the kahos. This is the classic like chitas that everyone has like in their car and the ladies have in their purse, and everyone has like on the little shelf in their kitchen. But then they made it big, which I like. Nice and big. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So Shavuos is a special time to strengthen ourselves with chitas. Chumash alle Tag a parsha Chumash mit Pirush Rashi. Every day you learn a portion of Chumash with the Rashi. Zontig bis Sheni, Montag bis Shlishi, und so weiter. You do the 7 aliyahs, each one of the 7 aliyahs each day. Tehillim, what do you do with Tehillim? Alle Tag noch in Davening in der Früh Ashir in Tehillim, wie is eingeteilt light the tag von Chaydish. Every morning after davening, you do a portion of Tehillim as it's apportioned according to the days of the month. In Levush steht wegen sagen Tehillim fahren davening, aber das ist noch ein Indian. Yeah. In Levush, it says that there is a concept of saying Tehillim before davening, but that's a separate thing that Abba says. Die Takana von Kved Christmas becoming Admor is to sagen dem Yem Tehillim noch in davening. The Frierdiker Rebbe's enactment is to say Tehillim after davening. Then you have Tanya. Alatog Ashir in Tanya Kefi Shenechalok Lemei Hashana. You have the whole Tanya, all 5 halakim of Tanya, apportioned to the days of the year. Finish once a year. Chumash is doch gegeben geworden, mechagish was durch Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, Chumash was given. Chumash is 5 books of Moses. That was given on Shavuos through Moshe Rabbeinu. Tehillim is doch shaykh to David HaMelech, was Shavuos is sein Yemeledis v'Yemelula. Tehillim was written by David HaMelech, and David, not only he was born on Shavuos, but he passed away on Shavuos. He lived exactly 70 years. Und Tanya ist doch shaykh zum Baal Shem Tov, warum Likkutei Sichos Baal Shem Tov ist durch Sidus Chabad und durch Tanya befragt. Kidu Arem ist in der Haskoma von Tanya, Ke'es Yismach Yisrael. Begal is Divrei Kodshei, was Shavuos is der Yom Hilula von Baal Shem Tov. And how is Tanya connected to Shavuos? Because Tanya is the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. Yeah, I know it was written by the Alter Rebbe, but Tanya is the codification of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, like it's hinted to in the Haskama, in the approbation of Tanya, where it says, and at this time, Yismach Yisrael will rejoice, which has a double meaning. It means the Jewish people, who are called Yisrael, will rejoice over the Tanya, but it also means Yisrael Baal Shem Tov will rejoice that his teachings were codified in this manual called Tanya. But yeah, and Shavuos is the yahrzeit of the Baal Shem Tov. By the way, which day of Shavuos is the yahrzeit of the Baal Shem Tov? You know it's a machlokes. You know that? Yeah. Chassidei Peilan say it's the second day, but Chabad says it's the first day. Ist doch jetzt der Mann mesugel sich zu starken in die Shiurim, was sie sein in Shabluchol Nefesh Nesef auf der his Chazkus in Shiurim beteire Bechlal kol Chadle vom Shira Delay. Was euch auf der Ruf ist selbstverständlich Pasek, der Mann von Chagish was man Matan Teira Seno, ganz Teira euch kol Mash Talmud Vasek Osad Lechadish. Now, Shavuos is a good time to make good resolutions in any area of Torah study, but especially in Chitas for the above mentioned reasons, the above connections that they have. But Shavuos is a good time to strengthen your connection, making good resolutions to learn any area of Torah, even areas of Torah that will, like the Rebbe says, only in the future be revealed by an experienced scholar. Und durch mir es hatte Kana von die Shiurim wird sein der Chitas Teves Chumash Tehillim Tanya Elakim ala Arem. And when you increase in Chitas Chumash Tehillim Tanya, you will also bring about the Chitas, the original source of that word, context of the word Chitas is Chitas Elakim ala Arem. The fear of God was upon the cities. It's talking about when Yankov Avinu, after the whole episode with Shechem, so they were fighting battles against the Canaanites. And the fear of God was upon the Canaanites, meaning they didn't want to mess with Yankov and his family. So when we learn Chitas, then the dread of God is upon anyone who would want to start up with us. Und es wird sein der Yisa'o. And then what does it say? And they traveled. As talking about Yankov and his family. As men vet foreign meteich menucha in Eretz Yisrael begula shlema v'amitas. Then you're going to travel. Travel where? To Eretz Yisrael, peacefully, with the true and complete redemption. Wie men hat gesagt zu Yankov Nisa v'neilcha, like it says about Yankov journey and go, travel. Was vet doch Tag sein bim Hedov Yameino. And that's going to be very soon. What's going to happen? That saviors will ascend Mount Zion to judge the mountain of Esav. Als durch Limmer Torah v'kima Mitzvos und die Abhittung von die Ebedamante Tkonis, that when we learn Torah and we do mitzvahs and we keep the above mentioned enactments, meaning the daily study of Chitas, we will draw down the revelation of Mashiach here in this physical world. This is from, again, the Sichos of Shavuos Tavshin Chai. So just to summarize, it's a very long Sicha. Well, we didn't summarize the one before the asterisks, so I'm actually summarizing both of them together. Maybe I should have, you know what, you're right. There are two separate Sichos. You're right, sir. So we had the longer Sicha about Shavuos as the center point between. No, that was before. Just summarize this one. Chitas. Okay. What was the one before it about? That really super long one. Oh, learning Torah for its own sake. Yeah. Hold on, make me nervous. It's going to actually make it take so much more time. I know we have a group coming at 1 o'clock. Okay, just you make me nervous. It's going to take more time. I'm begging you kindly, begging you nicely. Okay. Let's talk about the contradiction. Can we discuss the contradiction? Okay. And Baker Coffee Maker said summaries are always appreciated. Baker Coffee Maker is one of our most regular viewers.
We even asked him about Cox once.
Okay, sir. Where are we up to? Yud Ches. Okay, we're almost done. Doing fine. Don't rush me. Mount Rushmore. That's what I'm going to call you. Rushing me.
You know it's going to stick.
Mount Rushmore? Yeah. Okay, so that was the third. Basically, that was the third Sicha that we learned today. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So now here's the fourth. This is also important for. Can I just tell you a little behind the scenes? Yeah. After every one of these live streams, I put the transcript into Gemini, which is the AI that it has basically has access to YouTube because Google owns it. And I ask it to give me time codes. And then half of them are wrong, but at least it saves me time. I check them and then I correct them, and at least it saves me some time. So I like that Gemini should know where the sichas were. That's why the summaries are helpful. Anyways, Gemini, please listen, perk up your ears. We're now starting the fourth sicha. The third sicha was a tiny, short little sicha about chitas. Second sicha was about the importance of the oneness of Torah and Torah for its own Torah for its own sake. Torah higher than even practicality. Going backwards, the first sicha was about the idea of three. That three is really one, and three brings out oneness. And Nissan, Iyar, Sivan. Okay, now let's do the fourth sicha. Hear that, Gemini? Please. I don't want to have any problems with you. There's going to be 5 sichas total, Gemini. By the way, you know the irony that I'm like talking to Gemini now? Today's Rosh Sivan. What is the mazel of Sivan?
Oh my goodness.
Ta'imim. You know what ta'imim is? Gemini. Do you know Gemini is Loshen Rabim? It's not a thing. It's not a Gemini. Gemini is plural. Like fungi. By the way, you know what joke I love but I hate? Why did everyone invite the mushroom to the party? Because he was a fungi. Well, it's a cute pun, but a fungi is plural. He was a fungus. Oh, that's not funny. It's not a pun anymore. Puns are never funny.
So just change the question. Why did they invite the mushrooms?
Why did they invite the mushrooms? Because they were fun guy. Now the pun doesn't work either. We destroyed that pun. Yod Ches. You ready? Okay. I'm checking on the YouTube comments. Not much going on. Not very exciting. Not a lot of excitement there.
You have to make a little widget on the screen
Yeah.
of the comments, like on the live. Like, wait, no, that only helps us because everyone else that's watching YouTube can see the comments already.
Yeah.
We should do it just for ourselves.
Okay. All right. You ready? Yud Ches. I'm asking you nicely. I'm begging you nicely.
Begging you nicely.
Let's discuss the contradiction. Okay. Der Tam of dem, was die Torah ist gegeben geworden in Midbar, ist zu weisen, als so wie ein Midbar ist ein Mokim Hefker an der Balabos, als ist euch auf Torah nicht auch kein Balabos und jede Scheich zu Torah. Und wenn lernt Torah, wird die Torah seine. One of the reasons why Torah was given in a wilderness and a no man's land is to show that there's no boss over Torah. It's not private property. So any yid who chooses to come learn Torah can lay claim to it and make it his own. For was ist aber die Torah gegeben geworden in der Midbar Eretz Tzia, wo Ayef bli Mayim, on Kleider, on Essen, und Afilo, on Wasser, wie es steht, als die Kleider seien mitgewachsen, mit die Jeden in Midbar. Gegessen haben sie dem Mann, und Wasser hat sie der Eibester gegeben von einem Stein. But I get it why it was in a no man's land, like we said. But why did it have to be in a place where there was no food and water and clothing, no resources, no Walmart? Yeah. And rather, they had to get their food was given to them, mon, and their clothes had to grow with them, and the water they got from a stone. Weil dort in Midbar is nicht gewinn kein Sach, is für was hat man gegeben die Torah. Darf genasa wisst Midbar. But why did Hashem give the Torah in such a wasteland? You understand the difference? It could be a hefker place. It could be like a place that no one person claims. It's like public property. And that would make the same point that anyone is able to, anyone can learn Torah and make it their own, and nobody can hoard it and say it's only mine. But why did Hashem have to go as far as to give Torah in a place that has no resources? There's nothing there. And in fact, in order to be sustained in that wilderness for 40 years, the Jewish people had to rely upon miracles because there were no resources there. Is a mashal von Torah. In a mashal von Torah, seien doch alle seine Protem mechuven zum Nimshal. In a Torah mashal, which means an analogy or parable, every single detail is precise. Muss man doch sagen, als die alle Protem, was seinen gewähren, in der Midbar haben a Sheiches zu Matan Torah. Therefore, we have to say that these details have an inherent connection to Matan Torah. Der Ebe der Montatam ist doch nur auf dem Prat von Mokim Hefker, nicht auf die andere Pratim. Although, so far, we have an explanation only for why Torah was given in an ownerless land. We don't have an explanation why Torah was given in a desolate land. That was a good word, Yisrael. Venice kommt zu Limra Torah, teinit men. Let me start over. Wenn es kommt zu Limra Torah, when we speak about Limra Torah, teinit men, somebody could claim. As a seinen da verschiedene Manias, there are many things holding him back. Was stern zum Lernen that don't let him learn. Men stellt zu verschiedene Teines und mischundige Veränderungen. He resorts to all types of weird, that's what it means, mashunadik. It's weird. All types of weird rationalizations. This is why I couldn't learn. This is why I couldn't learn. This is why I couldn't learn. Okay. Wenn men Mund von einem Baal Esek, soll gewesen sein, item Teira, teinet as nicht das ist ein Inyan. You're going to demand a business guy to learn. He says, no, that's not my thing. Is a Baal Esek, und sein Inyan ist zu geben Tzedakah und ähnliche Inyanim. Aber nicht zu lernen. He says, listen, my thing is I make money and I give tzedakah and other good kinds of causes, but I don't learn. That's not my thing. I'm not a learner. Weist, as der Inyan von der Baal Esek ist so abreißen sich inmitten Esek und Daven and Mincha. Now he knows that a businessman has to rip himself away from his business day in the middle of the day and go Daven Mincha. He knows that. Und wie bewusst as das ist die Meile von Tfilas Mincha. And in fact, that's what makes Mincha great, is that you have to tear yourself away from your business to go do it. Because in fact, we say Elijah the prophet was answered only at Mincha because of the greatness of Mincha. So he says, listen, I daven Mincha. I got Mincha going on my side. It's for was Yokman. Why are you making me chase after, or why are you chasing after me to learn Torah? This guy sounds insufferable. Wenn men mont bei soll lernen a parsha Chumash mit Rashi. We say, listen, just learn Chumash Rashi. Wer redt noch dem Shir Tanya? And of course, needless to say, if you say to him, hey, can you learn some Tanya? Tanya there, he's going to argue with you. Chassidus montoch aveda beseder v'hadroga. No. Chassidus, that's a serious, organized approach to service. Es frert vet upton beschleimes alle seine inyanim. First, let me get everything else. Let me get my ducks in a row first. Bis tfilas mincha, including my mincha. Azovi Elio, Novi like Elio. Und nachher vet gain hecher. And then, subsequently you can go higher. Sagt sich nicht ab, Chas v'sholem von lernen Chumash mit Rasha oder Tanya, aber als mit der Zeit, lichshie ponne von seine Inyanim mit der Seder. He's not refusing to learn Chumash Rasha or Tanya. It's just, give me, in the right time, in the right order. I got to line up everything, and then I will do it in the right way. Now, the Yeshiv Oil is the guy who's a full-time learner. As when man bayem kol atzmei saite marna la yamush v'gemer und das gleich. If you say to him, hey, how about, I know you learn full-time, but how about kol atzmei saite marna, to put your entire self, all my limbs will declare. That means put your entire self into it. Or la yamush, you won't budge, you won't depart. Or the Torah will not depart from you at any time. Or anything similar to that. Sagt sich nicht ab von dem, he doesn't refuse it. Nor teinet as darf haben dazu achones. He says, yeah, but let me just, prepare myself. Frer darf sich ausschlafen, I gotta sleep. Vetter haben a ruhe gekop, I gotta have a relaxed head. Darf sich abhitten, essen edle maicholim. I have to be careful to, eat refined foods, In Alshich state, while derech ze b'shailas tshuvas Rambam, it says in Alshich, and a similar thing it says in the responsa of the Rambam, as wenn men est edle maicholim edelt es euch die Kop, that when you eat refined foods, it makes your head more refined. So this guy tells you have to do that. Und nachdem alim vet sich setzen lernen, and after that I'm going to learn. I mean, he already learns, but you're asking him to take it up a notch qualitatively and quantitatively, and he's like, Yeah, when I, get rested and I eat my special health food and yeah. Off the roof. Off. Off the roof is der Rauf und Sinas HaTorah in Midbar Eretz Yava'ayav B'li Mayim. Now that's why Torah was given in a desolate wasteland, not just in an ownerless area, but specifically in a desolate wasteland. As when get to Torah darf man sich in ganzen verlassen auf dem Eibishten. And when it comes to Torah, you have to completely rely on Hashem. Punkt 4 zu Matan Torah seien die Jiden a Reis von Mitzrayim in a Midbar be'eretz Loizruah, nicht wissendig wie und mit was sie wollen kommen, just like the Yidden. They came out of Mitzrayim. They went to a land that was not planted. They didn't know how, what's going to sustain them. The Mon haben sie gehabt b'schus Moshe. So they ended up having Mon in Moshe's merit. The Amuda on b'schus Aaron, they had the pillar of cloud in the merit of Aaron. Uvasa b'schus Miriam. They had water from a well in the schus in the merit of Miriam. They didn't know they were going to have that. Sie haben sich gedacht, verlassen auf das Schuss von 3 Tzadikim und darf gedan seinen sie gewinnt great zu Kabbalah Satera. They had to rely on the merit of these Tzadikim. And then they were able to receive Torah. Meaning they didn't have it all set up. They didn't have it all ready. They just went. And in the end, Hashem took care of them through the merit of these Tzadikim. Das ist Eirah. So that's the teaching. Euch Yitzter, to us now. For us now. As men darf sich setzen, lernen Torah und verlassen sich auf dem Eibishter. You have to go sit and learn and rely on Hashem. Und dann wird der Eibishter geben Kol mit Starich begashmis of Ruchnis, and Hashem will take care of everything you need materially and spiritually. That's from the Sichos of Chag Shavuos Tafshin Yud Aleph. The first Shavuos after the Rebbe officially accepted leadership. Gemini, I'm summarizing this Sicha, which is the fourth Sicha, which is why was Torah not only given in an ownerless land, which we know that. Ownerless is to let you know that any Yid who wants to learn Torah can do so, make it his own. But why in a desolate place where there were no resources, to tell you, you don't need to have any resources lined up. You don't have to say, let me get my life all organized and let me get my bank account all padded and let me get all the things I need all taken care of before you learn. Just go learn. Just like the Jews in the wilderness when they were sustained miraculously from Hashem, and that's all they had. And that was enough. Okay. The fifth Sicha. Are you ready, Yisrael? Chof Aleph. 309. Top of the second column. Chof Aleph. Es steht... Im Pizarto Raglucho ala oni vala mitzvah niskayim alecha borchato beveyacho borchato betzeisacho. It says, if you extend your feet for the poor and for the mitzvah, you will be blessed when you enter and blessed when you depart. Dia koloshin in divrei Azal darf haben bir. Now, our sages' words need to be carefully analyzed. This is a teaching from Derech Eretz Zuta. Im Pezarto Raglucho ala oni v'ala mitzvah. Niskayim alecha borach hato beveyacha borach hato b'tzeisacha. If you extend your foot for the poor and for the mitzvah, you'll be blessed when you go out and blessed when you return. By the way, this Sicha was said to the people who went out on Tahalucha. People who were like walking to shuls on Yom Tov. So we have to understand what is the precise language here that our sages employ. Aleph. Ala oni meint doch tzedakah. Is was sagt der ala oni vala mitzvah. I get it when it says when you extend your foot for the poor, that means for the poor. What does it mean for the mitzvah? See, then is mitzvah tzedakah nid bechlala mitzvah? It's some mitzvah other than tzedakah? Because for the poor, the mitzvah would be tzedakah. Adar, but tzedakah ruf men bechol talmud Yerushalmi sta mitzvah. To the contrary, which mitzvah is actually called the mitzvah is tzedakah. In Yerushalmi, Jerusalem Talmud, anytime it just says the mitzvah and doesn't say which one it means tzedakah. So it's funny, it says you extend your foot for the poor and for the mitzvah. So is that a mitzvah other than tzedakah? What? The Chayenu is a domeram as tzedakah is vi klolus. Can we discuss the contradiction? The Chayenu is domeram as tzedakah is vi klolus kol mitzvahs shkula connect kol mitzvahs. Aber das steht doch befeirischen Shas. Was darf das sagen da berames? Now maybe you could say, well, what we're trying to allude to is that tzedakah refers to all the mitzvahs because it's equal to all the mitzvahs. But that we already know. That's said very clearly. The tzedakah is equal to all the mitzvahs. So why does it have to be taught here in an allusion, in a hinted way? Okay, base. Auf Raglayim pas der Loshen alicha ad der ritza. Was is der Loshen pizarta? When you speak about the foot, the verb you should be using is alicha, walking, or ritza, running. But what's pizarta? Extending your foot. Chav base. Der Gufa Adam wird voneinander geteilt. Bechlal in 3 Teilen, Reish, Guf und Regel. Propitious, Teilen sich in der Machevarim. Now, the body of a person can be divided into 3 categories. Head, torso, and legs. And if you want to get more particular, 248 limbs. Azay is Eichen Mitzvos. So too in Mitzvos. As propitious teilen sie sich in Ramach Mitzvos essay. If you want to get really detailed, there are 248 positive commandments. In Sefer Charedim, there's a Sefer called Sefer Charedim. You know what it does? It counts through the mitzvahs, but it corresponds each mitzvah to a body part. Yeah, that's what it does. Yeah, sure. You want to make a Chavos and Sefer Charedim? Yeah. I have a copy at home.
I think that's a wild concept.
But it's not just biblical mitzvahs, because it'll be like mitzvahs you do with your nose, smelling the besamim. Not to smell idolatrous incense. It goes, like Sefer HaChinuch goes through the parshas in order and tells you the mitzvahs. Or like Rambam has his own way in Sefer HaMitzvahs. Sefer Charedim goes through the body parts and says what mitzvahs you do with different body parts.
Femur is like carbon mincha, and I was like, that's like crazy.
No, literally, different body parts that you used to do. Okay. In Sefer Charedim, teilt der Fernande de mitzvahs leit de varam jeder mitzvah so welche ever sie shaykh. Sefer Charedim goes to the mitzvahs and says which limbs each one does each one belong to. Bechlos tellen sie sich in 3. But then there's 3 general categories. Mitzvahs solche seine verbunden mit dem Verstand, mitzvahs that are connected to understanding. Like for instance, what? V'yedias dulas habera, like knowing the greatness of Hashem. Talmud Torah, learning Torah. Cool. Rosh, that's all head mitzvahs, head. Then you have mitzvahs welche seine verbunden mit dem Gefühl von Hearts, mitzvahs connected to the feelings of the heart, emotions. The Avos Hashem, loving Hashem, Yiras Hashem, being in awe of Hashem, and Avos Yisrael, loving a Yid. And then you have Guf, the body. Und mitzvahs meisies welche seine verbunden beigere mit Kabbalah Soil. Oh, I'm sorry. I messed it up. Head I did correctly. Mitzvahs that have to do with understanding, knowing the greatness of Hashem. Then you have the torso, which is 2 categories in itself. Emotional mitzvahs, like Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem and Avos Yisrael. And then you have mitzvahs maisius, physical action mitzvahs. No. Why am I messing this up? You have intellectual mitzvahs, like knowing Hashem or learning Torah, that's the head. Then you have mitzvahs that are connected with feelings like loving Hashem and fearing Hashem and loving a Jew. That's body, because the heart is in the body. Then you have mitzvahs ma'asis, physical mitzvahs that are actions. That is Kabbalah's oil, acceptance of the yoke of heaven. That's connected to regel, the feet.
It's not about an understanding or a feeling.
Right. So basically, you have understanding, feeling, and doing. Okay. Head, body, feet is understanding, feeling, and doing. Right? Intellect, emotions, and discipline. Intellect, emotions, and obedience. Those are the three categories. Verstanden Gefühl sein begrenzt. Interesting. We've had this concept. We had it a lot in Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph, the limitations of intellect and emotion, and the need for Kabbalah soil as a way to transcend those limitations. We're going to have it again. This theme is recurring here. The Rebbe says that understanding and feeling are limited. Euch der Kabbalah soil was kommt durch Hasago und Hergisch, das heißt verstehen und fühlen, als man darf mekabel sein, oil malchus shemaim, is as euch begrenzt. Interesting, the Rebbe says. In fact, even the Kabbalah soil that comes from understanding and feeling, meaning I understand that I should have Kabbalah soil. I feel that I should have Kabbalah soil. That produces a Kabbalah soil that is limited. Aber Kabbalah soil, wie das is be'atzem, is bligvul. But pure, unadulterated Kabbalah oil for its own sake, that is unlimited. Okay? Because when you do something based on your understanding or something based on your feeling, as lofty as that may be, there's a limit to it. And that's where your devotion ends. But when you do something because of Kabbalah oil, because I'm just surrendering, there's no end. Und das meint pesarta raglcha. That's what it means when you extend your foot. Pesarta meint Zerspretung, spreading it out. Unbegrenzt, past the limitations. Wenn und wo kann sein pesarte bligvul. Where are you able, or how are you able to achieve that spreading out past limitations? In raglcha, with your foot, which is what Kabbalah soil. Not with your head, not with your heart, not with intellect, not with emotion, but in pure marching. And I told you that I was saying the sikha to the people who went on the Tahalucha, on the marching all around New York City to different shuls to speak on Yom Tov. Reina regel, regel shberegel. The Rebbe calls it reina regel, which means clean feet, not like wash your feet, but like clean, pure, the pure concept of feet, not with any admixture of intellect or emotion. The Rebbe also calls it regel shiberegel, not regel as an extension of Reish or Guf, but regel as it is unto itself. Regel shiberegel. Wie is nicht verbunden mit Mayach v'leiv. Feet as it is, its own thing, not connected to brain or heart. Wenn regel is verbunden mit Mayach v'leiv, kann sein in der Ruf Hiloch höchstens Ritza. If you are, remember that I asked before, why does it use this weird verb of extending? Why doesn't it say walking or running? So the Rebbe says, if you are using your feet as an extension of your mind and heart, then you could have walking, you could even have running, which is obviously better than walking, but that's it. But if you have feet, just the feet by itself, then you could extend past all limitations, past walking and even past running. You understand what the point here is? Nobody wants to go on Tahalucha. I mean, some weird people like to go on Tahalucha, but nobody wants to go. You have to just go, because that's what you do. That's what you do. It's not about that you appreciate how important it is, and therefore you care about. No, we're going. You see people marching. That's it. You just bum bum ba-dum, ba-dum, you just march. You just go. Okay. And then you can transcend all the limitations. You see where we are? Chav Gimel. Wie kann aber ein Mensch a bardas peilen bei sich zu a weglegen sein Seichel of a hergischen Stein in a Tnur von pesarte Raglcha? How do you get out of your head and even out of your heart so that you can be in that pure foot mode? Auf dem sagt weiter, ala oni. That's what it says, ala oni. For the poor person. Soll sich misbeinen sein in sein Maimer Matzev, wird dann sehen, as is an ani. You have to meditate on your situation and realize you're the ani, you're the pauper, you're the poor guy. is omen bedas. You are poor in knowledge. Hat nit was zu rechnen sich mit sein Seichel. So don't resort to your intellect, because your intellect is poor. Weil derch sein mit herrgische Leben, and also emotionally. And wird peilen bei sich dem pesarte raglecha. Then you're going to realize what you got to offer here is your feet. Your mind and your heart are very limited. But you know what? I got great news for you. Hashem's not asking you to bring diamonds. He's asking you to bring wood. Go chop wood. Keep it simple. Feet. So, you are the ani. By zich dem psar derach. Okay. Al mitzvahs al mitzvah bechlal, al mitzvah stam, and that's with mitzvahs in general, and also the archetypical mitzvah, which we say is tzedakah, mitzvah tzedakah befrat, and event leifen mit the fist, run with the feet, on kene cheshbenis, without any calculation, tzulib, gabn, yidin, tzedakah begashmis, and tzedakah beruchnis, to go and give another Jew charity, both in the material and spiritual sense. Der schar auf der roof is, and what's the reward for this? Top of the second column of 310. Oischav Dalid. Der schar auf der roof is, Baruch HaTov B'Yacho, Baruch HaTov B'Tzeisecho. You'll be blessed in your coming and in your going. B'Yacho meint die Isurus de la Elov, es kommt far de Aveda, und is in es keach auf ihr. Being blessed in your coming means the boost that you get from above before you start to serve Hashem. But Tzeisecho, when you're going out, meint die Isurus de la Elov, was kommt noch die Isurus de la Sata, and that being blessed in your going means the arousal from above that comes as a result of the arousal from below. So first you have an arousal from above that comes just unilaterally, just to pump you up and get you primed and get you ready. That's being blessed in your coming. Then you have the reciprocal boost from above that comes as a response to what you did from below. That's being blessed in your going. Is in der Ruf da, der Baruch, as die Yisrus Le'elo soll sein, a sachach revi kfi erech avedase. And it's called a blessing, Baruch, because it's disproportionately greater than what you worked for. Das heißt, es noch sein Horvin, und in an Eifen von Pesarta, Bligvul, git menem a sach mer wie Leut sein Horvanje. That after you put forth all of your toil, you end up getting back way more disproportionately than what you put in. Because in a complete place, that is where the Holy One dwells. Okay. Chaf. Ready? Bottom of the left column. Is Chaf Hey. In Droshes is ala nal yetzis midei pshuta. This teaching of our sages has to also go according to the simple meaning. Ein Droshes is al yetzis midei pshuta. Because you could read, that was confusing. Ein. Yeah, zoom it up. Yeah, see the tiny little tzedek. Yeah. So I read it as a Yiddish word in, and then I realized it's the Hebrew word ein. This saying of our sages does not depart from its simple meaning, its literal meaning as well. Die alle, was haben mit keinem gewähnt, bepeil, pisarte Raglucha, was seien gegangen in der Tahalucha, am Merchak von Kamashois. All those who went on Tahalucha and marched many hours, was in der Zeit haben sie doch gekannt, sitzen beim Nucha und sich äußig sein mit Seren Jonem und von deswegen seien sie gegangen in den Eifen von Pesarte zu Limashpia sein, La'ani Baruchnias. All those people, they could have sat calmly, taking care of their own stuff, and instead, nevertheless, they went to go take care of people who are poor in spiritual terms. You understand what the Rebbe is saying? That we have to explain this teaching literally also? because the figurative or the homiletical way of explaining it was the poor person was yourself. That you make a calculation that as much as your intellect and your emotions may achieve, there's inherently limitations. Therefore, you are the pauper. You are poor of intellect and poor of emotion. Therefore, what should you give? You should give your action, your discipline and obedience. That was the homiletical understanding of this teaching. But then also there's the literal meaning, which is the ani, the poor person, is some poor person that you're supposed to go out and help. So the Rebbe says, let's explain it that way as well, which is, if you could have been sitting and taking care of yourself and relaxing, and instead you went out to go help someone who's poor, meaning someone who doesn't have knowledge, and you taught them. You should be blessed in your coming and going. You're going and coming and going in every day, von jeder Woche and every week, von jeden Chedesh every month, and von jeden Jahr and every year. Und euch beweyacha v'tzeisecha von seiner Aveda, von seiner Aveda, abracha beweyacha. They should be blessed that everything they do, all their work, when they come into it, should be blessed. When the Sinas HaKeach, milamayla zu matzliach sein, in zer arbet b'mili ashlichas, wohin they gain, they should be given a blessing to have disproportionate success in whatever they endeavor. Und abracham v'tzeisecha, and also when they're finishing, when they're coming back from the work. As nach der Aveda is in their shlicha sollen they zen pri toiv ba'amolim elamcha tira b'chayecha. The bracha when you're coming back means you should have the blessing to see the fruits of your labor, because we always have fruits of our labor. There's no such thing as working hard and nothing comes of it, but you don't always get to see it, and it's very nice when you get to see it. So you should be blessed in your coming, that when you come into the Aveda, Hashem should give you a boost to succeed far beyond your capacity. And you should be blessed in your going, meaning when you're going back, when you're finishing the Aveda, you should get to see what you accomplished. And they should also have success in their personal matters, in Limud Torah, in their Torah study, and in Kiyama Mitzvos, they're doing mitzvahs in a beautiful way, davening. Was die Avedas Hatfila is der Chut HaShedr von alle Inyanim. And let's not forget davening. Davening is the spinal cord, is the spinal column, the backbone of everything. And of course also they should be blessed in all of their needs in the material sense as well. And that is from the Sichos of Shavuos, Tav Shin Chai. Summarizing the fifth and final Sicha is that there's a saying of the sages, like we said, it's from Derech Eretz Zuta. Why do you always... When you close, I waited for you to close the book. Okay, when I close the book is when you close. Okay. Fine. There's a teaching from Derech Eretz Zuta that if you'll extend your foot to the poor person in the mitzvah, you'll be blessed in your coming and your going. And the Rebbe says that intellect isn't enough and emotion isn't enough. It's got to be bring your body. And that means, in this case, literally going on Tahalucha and marching and helping other people. Okay, we are ready for Shavuos, and I want to bench you all with the standard blessing of Kabbalah Sateda b'simcha u'b'pnimius. May you receive the Torah inwardly and with joy.